Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Fame, glory, and the spotlight often make us believe that our idols live untouched by pain. But behind the applause, behind the camera flashes, some of the world's most beloved black stars were fighting silent battles, hidden illnesses they kept from the public until their final days. Today, we revisit 13 iconic figures whose talent shaped music, cinema, fashion, politics, and sports, but whose bravery in facing illness was known only to a few. From actors and singers to athletes and revolutionary artists, each of them left behind a legacy far brighter than the darkness they endured. As you listen to their stories, take a moment to remember. Do you recall where you were when you first heard about one of these heartbreaking losses? Share your memories in the comments below. Now, let's begin with the man whose passing shocked the entire world, Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman, the king who suffered in silence. Chadwick Boseman's death in August 2020 was one of the most shocking losses of modern cinema. To the world, he was the strong, powerful King T'Challa, but behind closed doors, he was fighting a brutal 4-year battle with colon cancer, completely in silence. He filmed blockbuster hits, endured surgeries, and pushed through rounds of chemotherapy without ever revealing his pain to the public. When the news of his passing broke, fans around the globe were left stunned, unable to comprehend how such a vibrant hero could disappear so suddenly. Before his illness, Chadwick had already built an extraordinary career. He brought to life black icons like Jackie Robinson, James Brown, and Thurgood Marshall, roles that demanded power, depth, and dignity. And then came Black Panther, the film that turned him into a global symbol of pride, representation, and hope for millions. The world mourned deeply. Social media flooded with tributes, candlelight vigils, fan art, and messages of gratitude. Even children performed Wakanda Forever salutes in his honor. His legacy became larger than his films. He became a reminder of strength, grace, and silent courage. Do you remember the moment you heard that Chadwick had passed away? Share your memory in the comments. Up next, we move from Hollywood to the fashion world, to another black icon who hid his cancer for years, Virgil Abloh. Virgil Abloh, the visionary designer who worked through pain. Virgil Abloh's passing in November 2021 struck the fashion world like lightning. For years, he had been secretly battling a rare and aggressive cancer, cardiac angiosarcoma. Not even his closest collaborators knew the severity of his condition. While he quietly underwent treatments, surgeries, and endless hospital visits, he continued designing collections, staging runway shows, and reshaping modern fashion. When the news broke that he had died at just 41, fans and colleagues were left speechless. How could a creative force so unstoppable be suffering so deeply behind the scenes? Before illness shadowed his life, Virgil had already made history. As the founder of Off-White and the first black artistic director of Louis Vuitton's menswear line, he became a global icon of innovation. His approach, blending street culture, luxury fashion, and artistic symbolism, redefined what creativity could look like. He broke barriers for young black designers and inspired an entire generation to believe that they too could shape global culture. Tributes poured in from all corners of the world, designers, musicians, athletes, and millions of fans. His final Louis Vuitton show became a tribute to his life's philosophy: dream boldly, work tirelessly, and leave the world better than you found it. Did you follow Virgil Abloh's work? Comment the first design, song, collaboration, or fashion moment that you remember. And now, we turn to another musical genius whose silent battle recently came to light: Michael Eugene D'Angelo Archer. Michael Eugene D'Angelo Archer, the soul legend lost too quietly. The news of D'Angelo's passing in 2025 felt unreal to millions of music lovers. For decades, he had been an enigma, mysterious, deeply private, and intensely soulful. But behind that quiet exterior, he was facing a devastating battle with pancreatic cancer. Very few people knew. He continued creating, writing, and occasionally appearing in the studio while quietly confronting a disease that grows in silence. When his death was announced, the shock rippled across the R&B and neo-soul communities. Fans were heartbroken not only because he was gone, but because they never had the chance to know he was suffering. Long before illness entered his life, D'Angelo had already carved his name into music history. His albums Brown Sugar and Voodoo reshaped the sound of the 1990s and early 2000s. His voice, smooth, vulnerable, and spiritual, became the heartbeat of the neo-soul movement. Songs like Untitled, How Does It Feel, and Lady didn't just entertain, they defined an era. His artistry influenced countless singers, producers, and musicians who still consider him a genius of emotion and groove. When he passed, tributes overflowed from artists who rarely speak publicly. Fans revisited his albums, sharing memories of how his songs carried them through heartbreak, healing, and love. Many said the same thing: there will never be another D'Angelo. Do you have a favorite D'Angelo song or moment? Share it in the comments below. Next, we move from neo-soul royalty to the eternal queen of soul herself, Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul and her silent battle. Aretha Franklin's passing in August 2018 marked the end of an era. For years, the world had sensed that something was wrong: canceled shows, sudden health scares, and long breaks from touring. But behind the curtain, Aretha was facing a rare and aggressive pancreatic neuroendocrine cancer. She kept the true nature of her illness private, revealing little even to those in her inner circle. When news of her death was announced, millions were stunned. The Queen of Soul, the woman whose voice shook the world, had been fighting one of the most dangerous cancers in silence. Long before illness cast its shadow, Aretha had already become an immortal icon. With masterpieces like Respect, Natural Woman, and I Say a Little Prayer, she wasn't just a singer. She was a cultural force. Her voice carried the weight of gospel, the fire of soul, and the strength of Black womanhood. She sang for presidents, marched with civil rights leaders, and inspired generations of artists across every genre. When she left this world, tributes poured in from presidents, music legends, and fans everywhere. Cities lit up their landmarks in her honor. Radio stations played her music non-stop, and millions revisited the songs that had shaped their childhoods, their heartbreaks, and their victories. Which Aretha Franklin song has stayed with you the longest? Tell us in the comments below. Next, we move to another extraordinary voice, one who dazzled the world with her heavenly high notes, but hid her final struggle: Minnie Riperton. Minnie Riperton, the angelic voice silenced too soon. Minnie Riperton's death in 1979 remains one of the most heartbreaking losses in music history. She had been diagnosed with breast cancer years earlier and openly spoke about her condition, becoming one of the first major celebrities to raise awareness about the disease. But what the public didn't know was that her cancer had reached a terminal stage. Minnie continued performing, smiling, and recording despite the immense pain she carried inside. When she passed away at just 31 years old, many fans had no idea how close to the end she truly was. The suddenness of her departure shocked the world. Before tragedy struck, Minnie had already captivated millions with one of the most extraordinary voices ever recorded. Her flawless command of the whistle register made songs like Loving You unforgettable. She was more than a singer. She was a sensation, a breakthrough artist who fused soul, pop, and experimental sounds with breathtaking elegance. Her vocal purity influenced countless artists after her, and her artistry still feels timeless today. Following her death, tributes poured in from musicians, radio hosts, and fans who struggled to accept that such a bright star had been taken so young. Her courage led to greater public awareness of breast cancer, inspiring early detection campaigns that continue even today. Do you remember the first time you heard Minnie's voice hit those angelic high notes? Share your memory in the comments. Now, we move from a music icon
to a revolutionary who changed the sound and the politics of an entire continent, Fela Kuti.
Fela Kuti, the rebel who changed music while hiding his final battle. Fela Kuti's death in 1997 sent shockwaves through Nigeria and across the world. For years, rumors surrounded his declining health, weight loss, fatigue, and rare public appearances. But the truth behind his suffering remained hidden until after his passing, when his brother, a renowned doctor, finally announced that Fela had died from heart failure caused by complications of AIDS. Millions were stunned. The legendary musician, activist, and voice of the oppressed had faced his final battle in silence, unwilling to reveal his illness to a world that both idolized and scrutinized him. Long before tragedy struck, Fela had transformed African music forever. As the pioneer of Afrobeat, he blended jazz, high life, funk, and political fire into a sound that electrified generations. His songs challenged dictatorships, confronted corruption, and echoed the struggles of everyday Africans. His performances were explosive, raw energy, rhythm, rebellion, and truth. Fela wasn't just an artist, he was a revolution. When he passed, Lagos came to a standstill. Nearly 1 million people took to the streets to honor him. His funeral procession stretched for miles. Fans wept, tribute concerts erupted worldwide, and global media reflected on his genius and his courage, both musical and political. Do you have a favorite Fela Kuti song or message that resonates with you today? Share it in the comments below. Next, we move from a revolutionary musician to a legendary choreographer who hid his illness to protect his family and legacy.
Alvin Ailey, the dance visionary who hid his pain behind grace. Alvin Ailey's passing in 1989 revealed a heartbreaking truth the world never knew. For years, he had been secretly battling AIDS, carrying the weight of both illness and stigma during one of the most unforgiving periods in history. In his final days, Ailey made one last request to his doctor: list the cause of death as a blood disorder, not AIDS, so his mother would be spared the judgment and prejudice society placed on the disease. When news of his death spread, the dance world mourned, unaware of the silent suffering he had endured behind the elegance of his art. But long before illness shadowed his life, Alvin Ailey had already transformed the world of dance. As the founder of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, he created a new movement vocabulary, one that blended modern dance, ballet, Black cultural expression, and raw human emotion. Works like Revelations didn't just entertain, they spoke of history, resilience, faith, and the Black experience. His company broke racial barriers, gave opportunities to dancers of color, and became a global symbol of beauty and power. After his passing, tributes poured in from dancers, choreographers, and fans worldwide. His company continued performing his masterpieces, ensuring that Ailey's voice, bold, soulful, and revolutionary, would never be silenced. Have you ever watched a performance of Revelations or any of his iconic works? Tell us how it made you feel in the comments. Now, from the world of dance, we move to the arena of legendary sports battles and a fighter whose final struggle remained in the shadows: Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier, the heavyweight warrior taken suddenly by a hidden illness. Joe Frazier's death in 2011 shocked the sports world. For decades, fans had seen him as one of boxing's toughest warriors, a man whose punches shook arenas and whose rivalry with Muhammad Ali became the stuff of legend. But behind that iron exterior, Frazier was facing a silent and devastating enemy: late-stage liver cancer. The diagnosis became public only days before his passing. By the time the world learned of his illness, Smokin' Joe was already in hospice care, fighting his final round. The suddenness of the news left fans heartbroken. How could such a powerful icon fade so quickly? Long before his illness, Joe Frazier had carved his name in history. His relentless, forward-moving style earned him the Olympic gold medal and the world heavyweight title. And then came the battles with Ali, the fight of the century, the unforgettable Thrilla in Manila.
These encounters didn't just define boxing, they defined an era. Frazier's courage, humility, and grit made him a hero far beyond the ring. When he passed, tributes poured in from athletes, legends, and fans worldwide. Muhammad Ali himself released a heartfelt message honoring Frazier's strength and legacy. Many said the same thing: boxing would never again see a fighter with his heart. Do you remember watching Joe Frazier fight or hearing stories about his epic battles? Share your memories in the comments. Now, we move from boxing's greatest warrior to an NFL legend whose hidden illness caught the world by surprise: Reggie White.
Reggie White, the Minister of Defense, lost to a hidden threat. Reggie White's death in 2004 stunned the world of American football. Fans had always known him as a giant of strength, one of the most feared defensive players to ever step onto an NFL field. But privately, White had been living with serious health issues: sarcoidosis, a rare inflammatory disease, and severe sleep apnea. These conditions weren't widely discussed, and few understood how dangerously they affected his heart and lungs. When he suddenly passed away from cardiac arrhythmia at only 43 years old, the news hit like a thunderbolt. How could a man so powerful, so disciplined, be gone without warning? Before tragedy struck, Reggie White had built a legendary career. As the Minister of Defense, he dominated the NFL with unmatched intensity. First with the Philadelphia Eagles, then the Green Bay Packers, where he helped win a Super Bowl title. He wasn't just a football hero, he was a spiritual leader, a mentor, and a symbol of integrity both on and off the field. His combination of faith, strength, and humility made him universally respected. After his passing, tributes came from coaches, teammates, rivals, and millions of fans. The Packers retired his number. Documentaries, memorials, and heartfelt messages poured in. The NFL lost not only a great athlete, but a great man. Did you ever watch Reggie White play or hear stories about his legendary dominance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Next, we move from the lights of the stadium to the soulful voice that defined generations: Etta James.
Etta James, the soul powerhouse who fought her illness in silence. Etta James' passing in 2012 marked the end of one of the greatest voices in American music. But behind her powerful stage presence and timeless recordings, she had been fighting a long and private battle with chronic leukemia. For years, the public only saw glimpses of her declining health: occasional cancellations, long breaks from touring, and rare appearances. It wasn't until the final stage of her illness that the severity of her condition reached the headlines. When she passed at 73, fans worldwide were heartbroken, realizing only then how much she had endured away from the spotlight. Long before illness dimmed her fire, Etta had built a monumental legacy. With songs like "At Last," "I'd Rather Go Blind," and "Something's Got a Hold on Me," she reshaped blues, soul, and R&B with unmatched emotional depth. Her voice, raw, rich, and full of pain and triumph, became the soundtrack of love stories, heartbreaks, and unforgettable moments across generations. She influenced countless artists, from Beyoncé to Adele, and her music continues to resonate in films, weddings, and stages around the world. After her passing, the music industry paid tribute with an outpouring of love. Radio stations played her classics nonstop, award shows honored her legacy, and fans revisited the songs that had shaped their lives. Do you remember the first time you heard "At Last" or another Etta James classic? Share that memory in the comments below. Next, we journey into the world of jazz, to a genius whose final illness remained largely hidden.
John Coltrane, the jazz prophet, taken by a quiet, hidden illness. John Coltrane's death in 1967 came as a profound shock to the music world. Fans saw him as a spiritual force, physically strong, intensely focused, and constantly pushing the boundaries of jazz. But what they didn't know was that Coltrane had been living with a severe and largely undisclosed illness. Behind the scenes, he struggled with liver cancer, a condition few outside his closest circle were aware of. When he suddenly passed away at just 40 years old, even many of his fellow musicians were stunned. The world lost him in an instant, without ever knowing he had been suffering. Before illness took hold, Coltrane had already changed the direction of music forever. From his early work with Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk to his groundbreaking albums Giant Steps, A Love Supreme, and Ascension, Coltrane reshaped jazz with unmatched emotional depth and spiritual power. His sound, fiery, searching, transcendent, became a language of its own. He wasn't just a musician, he was a movement, a philosopher, a seeker of something beyond melody. When news of his death spread, grief rippled across the jazz community. Clubs held tribute nights, musicians dedicated performances to him, and fans gathered around radios replaying his masterpieces. Many listeners said they felt they had lost not only an artist, but a guide. Do you have a favorite John Coltrane recording? One that moved you deeply? Share it in the comments below. Next, we shift from jazz royalty to the cool, smoky voice of a reggae legend, Gregory Isaacs.
Gregory Isaacs' passing in 2010 left reggae fans around the world in deep sorrow. Known for his smooth voice and signature cool ruler style, Isaacs had a calm, elegant presence on stage, soothing, romantic, and full of soul. But behind that gentle exterior, he was fighting a private and grueling battle with lung cancer. Only close loved ones knew the severity of his illness. To the public, he simply seemed to be slowing down, performing less, resting more. When news broke that he had passed away in London at age 59, many were stunned. Few realized he had been living his final year in quiet suffering, still trying to stay close to the music he loved. Long before illness shadowed his life, Gregory had already become one of reggae's most influential voices. With classics like Night Nurse, My Only Lover, and All I Have Is Love, he brought a unique blend of romance, vulnerability, and streetwise coolness to Jamaican music. His charm and emotional depth made him stand out in a genre dominated by political and spiritual themes. Fans adored him not just for his sound, but for the intimacy of his storytelling. After his passing, Jamaica mourned deeply. Radio stations played tributes all day. Reggae artists across generations honored him, calling him a pioneer whose voice could melt hearts instantly. His legacy continues to inspire singers worldwide. Do you have a favorite Gregory Isaacs song that brings back a memory? Share it in the comments below. Now we move to the final story, a political giant whose illness remained shrouded in secrecy. Robert Mugabe.
Robert Mugabe, the controversial leader who hid his long illness. Robert Mugabe's death in 2019 closed the final chapter of one of Africa's most complex and influential political lives. For years, whispers surrounded his declining health. Extended medical trips to Singapore, secrecy from government officials, and vague statements from those close to him. But the true nature of his illness remained hidden from the world. Only after his passing did sources confirm that Mugabe had been battling cancer, likely prostate cancer, for a long time. Even in his final days, the details were tightly guarded. When he died at age 95, many Zimbabweans were stunned, realizing how little they truly knew about the struggle happening behind the scenes. Before illness overtook him, Robert Mugabe had already become a monumental figure, admired by some, criticized by many, but undeniably influential. As a liberation hero, he helped lead Zimbabwe to independence in 1980. For years, he symbolized African resilience and anti-colonial pride. But his later rule became increasingly controversial, marked by economic decline, political repression, and international criticism. Few global leaders have inspired such powerful mixtures of loyalty and opposition. When he passed away, reactions were sharply divided. Some mourned the loss of a revolutionary freedom fighter. Others reflected on the hardships Zimbabwe faced under his leadership. Tributes, debates, and documentaries flooded the media, each painting a different side of the man who had shaped a nation. What are your thoughts on Robert Mugabe's legacy? Hero, villain, or a complex mix of both? Share your perspective in the comments. Now, as we close this journey through 13 hidden battles, it's time for the final message.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this journey through the hidden battles of 13 extraordinary Black icons. They inspired the world with their talent, their courage, and their brilliance. Yet behind the fame, each carried struggles the public never fully knew. Their stories remind us that even the brightest stars can be fighting silent wars. Which of these stories touched you the most? Share your thoughts and memories in the comments below. Your voice helps keep their legacies alive. If you found this video meaningful, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth behind the spotlight. Thank you for watching.